Welcome to SoulWhat, a Soultopia production. Every Tuesday, Michelle and Roger Welch take a deep dive into the intriguing and proactive world of metaphysics, a world beyond our human perception. They'll talk to empaths, readers, and other guests from all walks of life to find out what's hiding under the surface, uncover the mysteries of our modern world, and reveal the answers you need to live a happy, healthier life. Now, here's your hosts, Michelle and Roger Welch.
Hello, everyone. How's everybody doing?
Awesome. What's going on today?
You're a little magician over there. Really fast with turning that on. I was impressed.
You thought I wasn't going to make it, did you?
Yeah, of course I didn't. He paused it a while longer. That's why you made it. I'm really excited about our guest, our friend tonight, Madame Pamita. For you guys, I know, right? I'm always excited to have Madame Pamita on the show. And so I'm going to just dive right into reading her bio. And we were saying before, if I can see it. So I'm going to get Roger to start reading bios too, right?
No.
Okay, but seriously, Madame Pamita is a professional tarot reader, root worker, and teacher. She is the owner of an old-time spiritualist shop and the host of 2 YouTube video series, Candle Magic Class and the weekly Magic Q&A Tea Party. Madame Pamita is also the host of the Magic and the Law of Attraction podcast. Visit her at www.parlorofwonders.com. And she has written, she is an author, writing all the time. She's, pardon me?
Rock and roll star.
Rock and roll star. She does everything. She's like beautiful, and lately should be in vogue from what I can tell from the pictures I've seen. Welcome, Madame Pamita. I'm so glad to see you.
Oh my gosh, Michelle and Roger. I am so happy to see you. It's like we get to have our reunion online, even though we're going to see each other this year. I'm very excited about that.
I'm very excited too. Well, let's start. I just have to start right off the bat with the book that is coming out. I know we've pre-ordered. It's not out yet, right? Because when I pre-order, when I go get the catalogs, I always order the stuff, and then I'm like, don't we have it over there? And Roger's like, no, it's even my own book was pre-order. So let's talk about your latest book, and also I want to talk about those amazing photos of yours. And when I say they should be in Vogue or French Vogue or something like that, I am not even exaggerating. I should have brought one. They are absolutely amazing. Can you talk about your book a little bit, just in general, and then we'll talk about the pictures?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for the book that's coming out, it's coming out in April. So I know how it is, like when you go on the Llewellyn site and you order books and you see the ones that are coming up. And I'm like, I'm going to order that. I'm going to order that. And I'm going to order that. And then you're like, where is it? Well, they put them up like 6 months ahead of time. So, you get surprised then when it comes. So you're going to see it in April. It's going to come out in April. In fact, I just finished up today editing the index in the back. Like I had to shorten it to make it fit. So that's the last thing I had to do. And I did it, and it's absolutely done.
Yay.
Now, Sammy, my editor, is going to send it off to the printers. She's going to do that, and then it'll come out in April. So we're very excited about it. So it's called Baba Yaga's Book of Witchcraft. It's about, it's really like very much a passion project for me. I'm half Ukrainian. My mom's side of the family is Ukrainian. My dad's side's like English and Scottish. So I have all that Celtic stuff over there and that English, British stuff over there. And then my mom's side's Ukrainian. And my mom used to tell me these stories about my grandmother doing these magical things. We always did magical stuff in my life growing up, but it was like little folk magic things, right? But she used to tell me these stories about my grandmother doing these things, like she would take a bowl of water over someone's head and pour wax into it. She was doing healing for someone. And I was like, what is that? I've never like in all my magical studies, I hadn't uncovered that or discovered it. And when I was doing research on it, I found what this was. It's like this healing ritual. That got me started on wanting to know more about Slavic magical practices, Ukrainian magical practices, which are very different than Western European magical practices, which we have tons of information about. I had to do so much research. I even had to learn how to translate and speak a little Ukrainian, which I had never done. My mom that didn't speak it. So it was like this huge endeavor to find this information and be able to do it. But I did it. And that's my book. So Baba Yaga is this witch that's in Slavic legend and lore and mythology. She's kind of like the witch in Hansel and Gretel in the stories. You know, the kids come and then she tries to put them in the oven, but they usually outsmart her, right? But if you go back deeper and longer and you learn more about her, you actually see that she's the sort of the forest, the mother of the forest, we would call her. She caretakes for the animals and the trees and the woods and the spirits of the forest. And that's the older version of her that I tap into with this book. So
did she get like many of the witches, did she get that kind of bad reputation of, you know, I'm going to get you little kitties and cook you in the oven from when people wanted to believe that witchcraft was bad, and is that how that all came about, the typical way?
Yeah, it's definitely, you clue right into it. It really was a situation where there's a little bit of difference in the experience of witches in Eastern Europe and Western Europe. In Western Europe, we know there was, especially in England and France and Scotland, where there were witch burnings and people were being persecuted and accused of being witches, even people who weren't witches. And of course, healers, you know, were often accused of being witches and so on. In Eastern Europe, there was a persecution. First of all, Christianity came later to Eastern Europe. It was about 988 that Christianity was established, and it was Eastern Orthodox Catholicism, not Roman Catholicism, that was in Eastern Europe. Most of Eastern Europe. And what happened is that witches would get taken to court. I mean, there were definitely witchcraft trials, but it would be like they'd get a slap on the wrist. They weren't put to death for witchcraft. They weren't, but it was, you know, the same situation, poor people, disenfranchised people. And, you know, people that were sort of outliers were being accused of witchcraft, but it wasn't like in New England and England where people were getting killed for witchcraft. It was a milder situation. They still were getting in trouble, but it would be like a fine, or maybe they'd have to be in jail for a little while or something like that. So it wasn't quite so extreme. But as most situations, when you have an established religion and pagan practices were really established up until 988, once Christianity came in, they were like, hey, here's our new religion, guys. And people were like, we're not interested. So they had to kind of enforce that. And so part of that enforcement was then, of course, vilifying healers, witches, and pagan practices. So that's another reason we know that is there. But I will say this, think about nature. You know, she's the mother of nature. She's the mother of the forest. The forest can be infinitely beautiful, but it also is a kind of a dangerous place. It's a bit ambiguous, right? And so her sort of personality has always been that kind of, she's a little bit dangerous, but if you treat her the right way, you can get some real gifts from her. And that's really her personality, is like the personality of nature. She's a nature spirit, you know, and so nature spirits, you want to be respectful. You know, just like going into nature, you don't go, hey, I'm going camping and I brought a roll of duct tape with me, I'm ready to go for a week out in the wilds. No way. You'd be gone. The animal would eat you, or, you know, who knows what would happen, right? You starve to death. So the same thing, you know, she has that ambiguous quality. Yes, she can be really beautiful and really giving, but you have to approach her in that way, you know. So
so she has that unpredictability, that volatility that can come out, just like the forest, just like the elements.
Exactly.
Right. So, and that's true of many, for lack of a better word. I don't know if you would what would you call her? Not a goddess, not a deity. What would you? What would you put?
Well, some people do call her goddess. I think of goddesses and gods being a sort of later tradition, actually, than where she comes from. You know, she's very, very old. We can really date her to very ancient times, like pre-written history times, because and I would call her a spirit, because the idea of like having a pantheon and having gods and goddesses was a kind of almost a later thing, you
Yeah.
know, than connecting to nature and connecting to spirits.
Gotcha.
But if people call her a goddess, I don't think that they're wrong per se. You know, it's just that she actually predates that concept.
Well, that's good to correct, though, for people to know. That makes a lot of sense. That I hadn't thought about that way. That was the pantheons came later. To think of it that way. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So it would be more Egyptian.
Well, or just
Roman,
spirit. Yeah,
yeah.
spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Baba Yaga, because I had read a lot about her, and I, in little card decks or something like that, little, and they would be in little goddess card decks. So not a lot. I take that back. I retract it. I'd read a couple of things in a couple of decks, and I thought, and I'm quite fascinated. So I'm really excited for the book to come out. So when you're talking about it, did you say the Ukraine? Is that where it's?
Yeah. So
Okay.
my grandparents came from, actually the area that they were in when they were there was called Galicia, and it was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. That part of Galicia then got separated at around 19 teens. It got separated into Poland in the northern part and Ukraine in the southern part.
Okay.
So the part that they were in, even though they were ethnically Rusin, which was Ukrainian, predates Ukrainian, but that's the ethnicity. They were, the place that they were is now Poland,
Okay.
where they came from. But it's up in the Carpathian Mountains. It's this mountain agrarian culture. It wasn't city people. These were farming people and agrarian people. And so, yeah.
So a lot of research went into the book, it sounds like, and you learned a lot. What was something that you learned about your heritage, or about something that you learned as you were going through the research that was really interesting or that surprised you?
Oh my gosh, the whole book and doing the research of this book, I did it during 2020 when, we were all in lockdown, right? So it was like the perfect thing for a lockdown project because I was just at home. I was, isolating and doing all of that before we got, all the medicines and things like that available. So when I was doing that, it was like, Michelle, I gotta say, it was like opening up a treasure chest, a dusty old treasure chest, and finding jewels inside. I kept uncovering these pieces of information that were like, it was so unbelievably important to me because I was uncovering things that then I could remember something that my mom had said or something that we had done. And I thought, I didn't know that these were things that were done. In fact, during, Soviet times, a lot of this stuff got suppressed because it was considered even religious, And so a lot of these practices, when there was a huge emigration of Ukrainians during the 1890s, the 1900s, 1910s, 1920s, 1930s, going to Canada and the States because of Soviet Russia invasions and all kinds of, stuff that wasn't really great. So they left, right? And so the ones who left were kind of the ones who kept those practices alive, while the ones that were still in Ukraine may have to had done it in secret, or they lived in such a remote place that the authorities weren't interested in them because they were way up high in the mountains or something, right? But there was a real suppression of this information. And so to find this information, I really had to dig very deeply. What opened it up for me was that discovery of that practice that my grandmother did, which was pouring the wax into water healing ritual. There was a book that was published a couple of years ago called The Word in the Wax that my friend, who's a Ukrainian Canadian, she has a shop called thewitchery.ca, and Katie Carpets is her name. And Katie said, I was looking in her shop and I found this book and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the thing my grandmother was doing that I couldn't find any information about. And that really started me on this journey. Then I discovered something that was so phenomenally amazing and so deeply meaningful, which was these dolls that they make. There's special dolls that they make called motanki. And motanki are dolls that are spirit dolls, but they're meant to be a home for your ancestors. There's like a huge practice of ancestor worship in Ukrainian magic. And these little dolls that you make by winding cloth together and wrapping threads in a cross around the face. There's no face on it. They just have this cross of threads. These dolls are ancestor homes so that you can invite your ancestors into your home to protect you, to take care of you and all that. And my grandmother did that for my mom. My mom was sick as a little girl and my grandmother made her a doll. And my mom said, oh yeah, your grandmother made me a doll when I was little and I was sick. And I was like, so, and then I found out about this and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what she was doing. So there was tons of these mind-blowing things where I would remember something that my mom did or said, or that we used to do, but I didn't have a connection of what it meant. I only knew it from doing it with my mom or hearing about it. Right.
Right.
So yeah, it was amazing.
So when you say Slavic magic, is that what we're talking about? And okay, so explain to me the difference between, because you've used a couple terms. So could you explain it to me, the difference?
Sure.
Yeah.
So Slavic culture is Eastern European culture. The Slavic countries are countries like Russia, Ukraine, Poland, Czech Republic, Croatia, Belarus, Bulgaria. There's a lot of countries that have an ethnicity of Slavic ethnicity.
Okay.
So those all are really kind of wrapped into that. What we find, and so Ukraine is a country that comes from that Western sort of Ukraine is between kind of Poland and Hungary and Czech Republic and Russia on the east, those other countries on the west and the north. So it's kind of right in the center of it. It's about the size of France. It's a big country. It's not a small country. And so because that, I'm diving into particularly my region, because that's, where my parents come, my grandparents come from, right? But you will find that there are variations on a lot of these very old practices showing up all over. So like, for example, the dolls, we were just talking about those dolls. In Bulgaria, they make magical dolls too. In Poland, they make magical dolls too. They have different names for them, but those practices seem to be all over that whole Eastern European area. And then you find different names for them and maybe even slightly different practices. Like there's a practice in Bulgaria where they have the dolls seasonally. So they have these little dolls that they bring out at the, I'm going to probably get the date wrong, but I think it's around either spring equinox or it's either Candlemas or spring equinox. It's one of those days. So it's either February 2nd or at spring equinox. I mean, spring equinox. So either around there, they have these little dolls that they do in Bulgaria that have a lot of the same crossover purpose. They're like a little spirit doll and so on and so forth, but it's slightly different. So I just had to, I could write a whole, giant encyclopedia of all the different Slavic countries and all their different practices, but I just focused on mine for this one, because it's the easiest and I could go in depth with it. So.
Well, and I think that's a good place to start, because it would be, for those of us who, that would be very overwhelming, I think, to, for us to take all of that, at least me. I would want to take with one thing and say, okay, let's learn this. And it's, it makes me think about one thing that came up, and Roger, I'm not trying to step over if you have something to say, but it's very interesting to me that that you said that when, the Communist Party, I guess, I don't know if it was the Communist Party that did this, but that they considered it a religion, part of a religious practice. Whereas here, they would consider it like a, probably not a religious practice, but they would want to get rid of it for other reasons. But they looked at it as a religious practice. That's one thing that I found kind of interesting. Just get what I'm getting at, and also the fact, what is it? And this is not really about the book, but what is it about the Ukraine? And I'll just show my ignorance here geographically, since you kind of know this, that is so important to Russia.
Well, it's huge. If we want to talk about the political thing that's going on right now, I can totally talk about that.
Just but briefly, what is it, because where it is, and you say it's as big as France? Is that?
Well, there's two things. One of them is that land is super rich agrarian land. It's got I think it's something like 30%. I might get the percentage wrong, but 30% of the world's, or maybe it's more, maybe it's like 70%. It's some like enormous number of the world's black soil. So black soil is super rich soil for growing things. And it's like this amazing farmland that's there and available. So this land has always been disputed and it's always been super desirable because it's great for growing things and you want to feed your people, right?
Right.
So that's one of the reasons. The other reasons, like today, so that's why constantly this land has always been in play for a long time. It was part of Poland and that was part of Lithuania. And it's always been land that has been very, very desirable for people to take over. So that's historically. Right now, what's happening is that Russia doesn't want Ukraine to become part of the EU or part of NATO, because then if it is, then they have a NATO country right next to them and they don't want that.
Gotcha.
Putin doesn't want that, right?
Yeah.
The other thing I will say about what you were bringing up before is that, so during the USSR, the times of, the Soviet Union, there was a state-imposed religion. The state-imposed religion was atheism. So if you did any religious practice, they were kind of dismissing it. Then they were seeing it as really counter government. And so they were imposing atheism. So one of the practices that's really ancient is having a home altar in your home. Up until Soviet times, people had these home altars in the eastern corner of their home where they would have an icon, which is like a picture of a saint or Jesus or Mary or, someone up there. And they would store all their kind of magical goodies up there, magical candles and incense and things like that, right, would be stored there. Well, when the USSR took over, of course, they were like, you need to get rid of those. So what did people do? They put pictures of flowers up there. They put pictures of, they might put a picture of a leader up there, but they might put a family member's picture up there. They kept the essence of that home altar, but they weren't allowed to put anything religious on it, but they still kept the practice going. That was the way they sort of worked around it, was by keeping that practice, but putting a different picture up there.
Interesting. Interesting.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So, we all have things like when we're kids, we kind of just conveniently forget over time, but you've done a lot of research with this and it brought up some things. Have you found something that you kind of connected with that you've added into your own practice daily?
So much of this. I mean, I think there's very interesting things. We can find in folk magic practices a lot of crossover. So whether we're looking at hoodoo, whether we're looking at Celtic magic, whether we're looking at Eastern European Slavic magic, whether we're looking at, ATRs, I think we can find a lot of amazing common ground. So a lot of the practices that I have are now richer and have changed. The ancestor work, for example, through the research that I've done, I brought in Motanki, the dolls that I didn't have before. Now, I always had an ancestor altar over some of it is intuitive. I had an ancestor altar on my hearth, on my mantelpiece over my fireplace, right? That happened on its own. I didn't learn about that. I didn't research it. I just was like, oh, well, what do people do? They put pictures of their family up there. I put little magical items and things that represent important things of my Scottish English heritage, Scottish English Irish heritage over there on my dad's side, and my Ukrainian heritage. I just put them up there. Well, it turns out that the hearth, that the stove, the wood stove that so many Slavic people had, and many still have in their home, is the place where the ancestors live. I didn't know that. But now I have a new, richer understanding of like, oh, this is like where my ancestors hang out is by the fire. So.
Oh, interesting.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, like a whole study could be made around the hearth, just a whole interesting workshop, stemming from the book, around the hearth. I think it would be really interesting. Yeah. So I am curious about, how do I say this? Okay, so is Baba Yaga accessible to everyone, or do you need to be from that heritage to work with Baba Yaga?
Well, in my opinion, I'm all about having open systems. I don't believe in closed systems.
So you knew what I was asking, but I was dancing all around it. So you just said it right out. Okay, thank you.
But I think that with every system, you should come with respect. Do you honor it, or do you like if somebody came in and said, well, let's just put on my other side of the family. So someone comes in and goes, Baba Yaga's Celtic. She's not, I mean, she actually could be, because the Celts did come from kind of Central and Eastern Europe way back in the olden days. But that being aside,
but if they said she was
Celtic,
American, okay, she's
American.
Yeah.
She's American. That's a good one. All right, so she's American. She's not European. She's not Russian. She's American. She's not Slavic. She's not, and I would be like, that's not right. So I kind of go like, well, you're going to twist something to make it fit what you want it to mean, then that's kind of stepping on something and crossing a boundary. But in terms of practicing with something, I think if you feel drawn to work with her, that you can do that if you come with respect. It's like anything, you come with respect, and if you come with respect, doesn't matter. There's a beautiful deck called the Slavic Oracle deck that's out now, that was made by to people who don't have any Slavic heritage, and it's a gorgeous deck. So I'm like, great, that's fantastic. So it's done with knowledge, research, respect, then it's perfect, then that's fantastic. I would say, that's my opinion about it. So.
And I didn't mean to cut you off, but that's exactly what I said last week, because there's been a lot of that going around, the whole appropriation, the gatekeeping, the don't do this, don't do this. And I said, everything with respect, because certain and knowledge, do your research, know what you're talking about, but it all comes down to respect, because we speak to certain indigenous cultures and certain things we sell, and we've gone straight to the chiefs in certain tribes, and talk to them, and they're like, they want to share. They want to share with us, as long as we know what we're talking about and we are representing it properly in our store. And so it all goes back to respect and honor and knowledge and correct representation. So I agree with you on that. I agree.
I love hearing that too, because you think about, like, you can get a dream catcher made in China, sure, but what has it got in it? It's made in some factory where nobody really cares. Or is it something that's made by indigenous people, and you're supporting people who really need that support, right?
Exactly.
People who live in our own country here, and our own native indigenous people here, who need our loving support and our respect. So are you getting it's not to say like, can you get the gas station, dream catcher? Sure. But,
but are you, I hear you. And we're on the same page, because we've had this whole conversation. And for us, where we get certain things, Roger knows where we get the Palo Santo from. It's a family. It's a family that's what they've,
they still hand carve some like little statues out of I've got a little dragon hand carved from the grandfather. There's some cool like things that you get, and you're supporting the whole family when you're doing that.
Right. So I didn't mean to get the whole show off on that, but I was interested, because when the book comes in, and if somebody really connects to Baba Yaga, and when you're selling the book, you want to be able to say, no, you don't have to, yes, this is a very interesting book. And it's not just that you're reading in his history. If you read this book and you really find a connection with her, then it may be somebody that you want to work with, but yet you better do it respectfully, because she can be volatile, and she can be all these kinds of things, just like Kali. And, I'm using an example that I'm pulling from, that some people, they're like, oh, yeah, I work with Kali. And I'm like, okay, well, you might want to know what you're talking about when you say you work with, right? Yeah. So I just wanted to ask you that, and I'm glad that you're willing to openly speak about it, because I very openly spoke about it. But respect and honor is to me, I don't think any of us have a problem with being respectful. Let's do something a little bit fun. You want to? Okay. So but first tell us the name of your book one more time, because just so we could tell everybody the full name of the book. that's
It's
coming
called
out?
Baba Yaga's Book of Witchcraft.
Okay.
So Baba Yaga's Book of Witchcraft. And I got to say one little thing about it. If you don't know who Baba Yaga is and you want to have a sense of her, this book is arranged in a really unique way. I take a story and I rewrote and I sort of blended a bunch of stories about her into one story. And so each chapter starts with like a little episode in a fairy tale. And then we hear from Baba Yaga talking about the magical practices that are showing up in that episode. And then I go in and tell you how to do it in today, like how you can do it in your life today. Like, for example, there's some things there, like you're working with an old wood stove. Well, what do you do if you want to do fire magic and you don't have a wood stove? Well, this is how you can do it. And so I teach all the ways of working with like living fire and working with the different spirit, the spirit of the house, the spirit of the forest, all these different things. But it comes in those 3 parts. So it's like fairy tale, Baba Yaga talking, and then me talking.
Okay. Oh, I love that.
That's cool.
And we will save time to talk about the other 2 books because we're tying candle magic in here. Okay. So you guys, I'm gonna ask y'all some fun little questions, and I'll throw in maybe some from the book too while we're going, or you might want to tie some things into Madame Pamita from your candle magic book, the Book of Candle Magic by Madame Pamita that we have right here. Yeah, she has it, and we've got it right here on our screen.
Yep.
It's one of the prettier books that's come through our store. If you see it right here, it's a hardback and it's a very, very good price, and we sell out really quickly.
I was shocked we actually had some.
I think I ordered.
Well, we had Michelle's copy, and then we had like 2 copies, and that was it.
And I'm like, my copy, and then the store I think has a copy.
Yeah.
So then, but I think you can order the match. You can order is 60. And then you have to go back in and order like another 60, like that's a case.
Yeah.
And so I think on this order, I ordered a case of her books.
Case of them,
yeah, we ordered a case of your books. Or maybe I went back in and ordered another case because they're just like, why do we just keep having to rechurn them and churn them and churn them every time? Okay, so just for fun, you guys, everybody's going to play long. Matt, you're going to play long, right?
Okay.
Okay. So
Here, I got my buzzer for you.
So we got the Sasquatch buzzer. Okay, so we've got to be real fast on these. Yes or no? Do candles float in water?
Sometimes.
Ding, ding, ding. She got a point. I said you got to be fast. That's 1 point for Madame Pamita.
I'm going to assume that she knows more than me on this.
Well, come on. You got to play along. You got to play along. Okay. Be fast. Everybody's going to get this one. Will candles melt in the car?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I've melted a bunch of them.
Depends on how hot the car is.
I mean,
We're in
I don't
Texas.
know-
It gets
I don't know
hot.
why they put that one in there. Okay.
Yeah.
All
Texas
right.
gets hot.
This
They
is a
melt.
good one, and we'll see what your opinion is of this, Madame Pamita. Do candles expire?
No.
Yeah, and so they said it depended because of the scent or the dye. Like, maybe if somebody put a scent and then the scent goes away and then
It would dissipate probably the scent over time if you just
Yeah.
left it.
Yeah.
But I don't
Especially
know if that's expired. You can still burn
Yeah, you can
that
still burn the candle,
So it
yeah.
depends on, I burn all, who gets the rejects at my shop? The factory seconds, me. So
Yeah.
I'm fine with burning a factory second.
Right. And of course, these are questions not from the purposes. This is somebody, this is like a candle company, like going, okay, you didn't give me the coconut smelling candle because you had it for 10 years and the coconut smell's gone probably. All right. So this
You know what?
one,
I got to tell you, I got to throw in one little trivia thing
yeah,
here.
go ahead.
Do you know now, Yankee Candle, they have a lot of scent in those candles, right? My candles don't have scent in them, so I don't think about that. But Yankee Candles, those things smell, right?
Yep.
They can tell when there's COVID spikes by people complaining about the candles not smelling. So if you get a Yankee Candle and it doesn't, and you say it doesn't smell, you better go to get your test. COVID test.
I love that. Okay, now we know the test for COVID. Forget you don't need it. You don't need to go fight in line.
Michelle will be ordering those tonight just
Yeah.
to see.
Make everybody that comes in the store take
Can
the
you
sniff test. Can you smell this or
Yeah.
not?
What scent is
Exactly.
this candle?
What scent is this? It's peppermint. If you don't know peppermint, you failed. Bye. Get out of the store. We don't need you here. Thank you. Okay, so, this one, y'all can just, somebody can volunteer to answer. Roger, I know you know it already. So, Matt or Madame Pamita, why do candles flicker?
Because there's a draft in the room, or because the wick is bad?
Yeah, so it's the air, right? It's the air rushes in around the base of the flame, and it's a combustion reaction. So it's really interesting, and it says a lack of ventilation can cause some issue. Any subsequent flickering sometimes is due to the flame getting too little or too much of it. So I thought that was kind of interesting because then I'll get all logical and I'll be going, okay, now when I'm reading that flickering, because I'm going to ask you some questions on what people ask, the most general questions, and I want to get to those, the most general questions they ask about, okay, my candle, I've lit it, and, so I don't want to do these for too long. Okay, this one's interesting. When candles burn, where does the wax go?
Into the air. It's part of the stuff that goes up the smoke, the vapor. It's vaporized into the air.
Exactly. So
or it drips. That's
or it drips. But you're right though, and I love that because that's the whole thing of everything being energy. I mean, it's liquid, solid, gas. I mean, it changes back into a different form, right? So it's alchemy, really.
Yeah.
You got more
There's a
alchemy.
great thing you can do with that experiment. Blow out a candle, not your spell candle, because you don't want to blow out a spell candle, but blow out a candle or snuff a candle, and then light a match and hold it right above the wick, about a 1/4 inch above the wick. That wick will light again because the vapor is still coming off, and the vapor will get lit and it will ignite that candle wick again.
I love that. Okay, so here's one. We'll do one or two more. Where did candles originally come from? And I'll tell y'all what they said.
Well, I would say, it sort of depends on what kind of candles, because there's a thing called rush lights.
Exactly.
Rush lights were like a cattail kind of thing, and they would dip it in fat, and then they would light that.
This woman knows her candles. You guys, this is why you want to buy her book, because that's exactly right. That was the Egyptian way. And then finally, the Romans would melt beef fat, which is tallow, right? And pour it over fibers. But it was the Egyptians who would have rush lights. So it's exactly right. So Madame Pamita wins that. And let's see. Oh, this one's interesting. Are candles allowed in your luggage by the TSA? Are candles allowed in your luggage?
Well, if not, I've been breaking the law a lot.
Arrest that woman. No.
I think that they are, because they're not combustible without a match.
Yeah.
Exactly. So they're allowed in both carry-on and checked luggage by the TSA. And then Roger disputed this one. He was like, well, that's dumb. Can candles heat up a room?
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
And so that's what he said.
Well,
and that's what he said.
Yeah.
and so, but the answer here was, it depends on the size of the room. So they're getting a little bit technical.
And
here.
how many candles you've got going.
Yeah. If it raises it by just a little bit, it still raises the temperature in the room. And if you think about it, if you go to like a church where they have a lot of candles burning, it can be hot in there because the candles burning.
When I had my banks of vigil candles going in my office, I had where I was doing readings, my reading room had 30 candles going at a time. In summertime, you were like, oh my God, you wanted to get out of there. It's too much, right?
All right.
Yeah, so we would burn them and then snuff them and, burn them late at night.
So, Roger, I don't know if people have asked questions on there about candles, but I know the questions that we get and that you get sometimes in your classes. So let's throw out a couple. And these aren't quizzes from that. This is just, so of course you're going to want to read the book. If you don't have this book, I'm not kidding. This is like a must-have book for your collection, as is her tarot book that I've said before that we'll talk about in a second. But it has everything you need to know about candle magic. But as you know, you're going to know the most asked questions. One of them is, okay, so I've lit my candle and it just has this, and I lit it for like a love situation. I'm not going to go into all the details, and it has just a little tiny flicker. It just will barely burn. How would you read that, or would you not read anything into that?
Well, the first thing I would say, whenever I do a candle reading, the first thing I do is look to see if there's a material world source for the issue.
Right.
Is this a candle that the people didn't know what they were doing when they made the candle, and the wick's too small, the candle's too big, and the wick's too small, and that's why your candle is going out? Or was it a dollar store candle? Dollar store candle, nothing wrong with a dollar store candle, but the quality can be a little sometimes, right?
Well, and their wicks go like this.
All
I mean,
kinds
they
of stuff
start
happen.
at the top and they
So-
go,
So start first with what kind of candle you got and where is it in your house, and start there. And if there's no physical reason why, then we start our reading on that candle. If it is a low flame, I would say that this intention needs some more energy to it. It is low energy. It's like, right? So let's say you were doing a spell, like you said, to get, Milton to come back to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you that flame is really low. Milton doesn't want to come back, is what it's telling me,
Yeah. All right.
Not
That's what
interested.
I would think too.
Yeah. So then you might want to do a different spell to create more passion or to create more attraction, and then do your come to me spell or whatever you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you
I
have
agree with
some.
that.
Oh,
Yeah.
Throw another one at her.
You didn't tell me that.
Okay. Well, you want me to go and you can be thinking?
Well, one thing, I guess. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, first of all, I will say I personally ordered a lot of, and I should have brought them up here, and I'm sorry that I didn't. I personally ordered some of Madame Pamita's wonderful products from the Parlor of Wonders for myself, and they are fabulous. So you guys all need to check out her products, her oils, her candles. She has houses for blessings for your home, for protection for your home, all different shape candles, right?
We should have just gone out there and got them.
You can get them in your shop. Let's have them in Soultopia.
Well, let's do it. I thought we had talked about that, but I had passed. I won't say.
Once again, let's
I
just
thought
go
I had,
out there.
I thought
We're
I had.
busy.
I think we need to
Let's
talk one-on-one
Make
on
a
that.
trip.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
well,
make a trip to California and go see her
well,
and get some.
I would be happy to do that. I miss going out there. But okay, so another question, Matt. Can you think of a question? You guys be thinking of a question. If you were going to burn a candle, so do you cut the wick? Because when I was raised, it was very polite. You did not ever have a candle in your house with an uncut wick because it was rude. So you always trim the wick. Okay, that was just a polite thing to do. It was Miss Manners. But should you always, before you start, should you trim your wick, yes or no? Or does it matter?
1/4-inch wick is the ideal wick length. That means that you shouldn't have it too short, because then you'll have a hard time lighting it. You'll still be able to light it, but it's going to be harder. And if it's too long and it's not being trimmed as you burned it, it can build up carbon at the top, and that's where you can get those little knots or the things that look like little mushrooms. That's carbon buildup on the wick. So we have wicks now that are self-trimming wicks that curl, and they kind of break off as they curl down, and those are great because then you don't have to mess around with it. But yeah, 1/4-inch is what I would say.
Okay.
These here, because they just come to us not trimmed, and we do tell people to trim the back.
And then those are from Atlanta Candle Company, which are really, really nice people. I don't know if you know them, but they're very, very nice people.
Because you're on TikTok too, right? Some. No, why not?
I'm
You need
a
to be.
little bit over 13.
Well,
But-
believe-
he's not.
I'm not.
And,
I'm on there.
He's on there and
But
feeds the
lo-
dogs,
oh my God. And that's
watermelon
the
pickles.
problem is that they've had people on there with the 7-day candles like this. Oh, just take your pencil and just put holes all the way. And you can always tell the dollar, like you said, the dollar store, because they're so soft.
Yeah.
These are not going to be like that. They're too solid. But I always tell people, about we were talking about with the packing too much herbs in here. It's actually about the intentions and using a little bit of the herbs in top of it. Not a bowl, don't pack it. It's just a candle, put a little bit of herbs in the top with the oils.
That's on page 72. I just happened to turn to that.
That's
Literally.
one of my pet peeves.
Is that not
It is,
interesting?
right?
I literally turned to that when he started talking about page 72 in your book.
But on TikTok, you'll see people, my candle's not burning. It's not. Take some of the crap out of it. Take some of the herbs out. Clean it up and burn again with just a little bit.
Yeah.
See, that's why you have to be older than 13 to be on there. So you can teach
But
these
I'll tell you
people.
something. It's like this is a pet peeve of mine because I've seen some gorgeous. I mean, don't get me wrong. I have seen some amazing, gorgeous, beautiful candles on, that people make and they put up on Etsy, and they're like packed with herbs and plastic creatures, and I'm just like, oh my God, somebody's going to light that and they're going to burn their house down.
It's happened here. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm telling you. And this is also a general magic pet peeve that I have, which is people think I need to put lots of something and it will be more powerful.
Yeah.
You're bringing in spiritual allies when you bring in herbs. You do not need to bring in a whole tree. You bring in just a little pinch of everything is enough. That's why if you want to go into other things like mojo bags, people take a flannel bag and they stuff it full. So that's like this giant baseball. I'm like, how are you going to carry that on your body?
Just
like,
just
you're going to
add
have a
little
third
bit of
boob?
stuff.
Because that's going to be a third boob.
Okay, so I will throw one out at you that a shape that
Shape candles?
okay, yeah, shape candles.
Penis shape.
I was going to do lips.
Oh.
Okay, so he
Wait.
said, I think I got Matt to blush. Okay,
Wait,
so
I was going to have a follow-up question on that because we've had other
Put that
candles.
penis candle and that lips candle together.
Exactly. That's right.
the lip candle is in your book, and
Yeah,
you
so the lips candle is great. Oh my gosh. I love, you got to get creative when you get with shapes because they're symbolic, right?
Right.
That lips candle, I think of all the places you can go with that. Of course, we think of kissing, right? Lips can be kissing. Lips are also communication. When we get into communication, it can be you want someone to speak to you or you want a gossipy person to shut up.
to shut
You can
up.
also,
Yeah.
you can also do it for healing communication or getting someone to talk to you or being a better speaker. Maybe you're trying to communicate or you want to be more confident when you're speaking in public. You could do it for that. You want to write a book, do a lips candle because you're communicating with people. I mean, it's like the possibilities are endless with that candle. It's one of my favorites. I love that candle.
Okay, and so would you? There's the penis candle, Roger. It's
See?
in here. The
long as you-
phallus candle. It's in here.
Depends
no
on what you're
worries.
using it for. As long as you're not putting pins in it and stuff, it's okay.
Proper ladies here, we say phallus.
So yeah, you even have
Phallus.
the 3 wise monkeys in here.
All right, somebody did say on here about extinguishing candles, and I know what I say about it. What do you think about extinguishing candles?
Well, there's 2 things. Number one, the safest method of extinguishing a candle is to snuff it out. Because when you're blowing it, you're blowing wax everywhere. First of all, if you got a pool of wax, you can blow wax everywhere. It's a lot of things can happen. And magically, my system is when you blow something out, you're ending it.
Yeah.
When you snuff it out, you're putting it on pause, and then you relight it, and you can restart it.
Exactly.
I have a huge thing, which you guys will appreciate, which is I always say, when you go to sleep and you leave the house at night, or you leave the house or you go to sleep, snuff your candle out. Do not leave your candle burning unattended. That is a recipe for disaster. I have seen candles do crazy, crazy things. And thankfully, when it did do those crazy things, those once in the 500 times that something crazy happens, I was there. But if that crazy thing happened when I wasn't there, something terrible could have happened. So you always want to snuff it out when you go to sleep at night and snuff it out when you leave the house.
Okay.
I've seen a lot of people too take especially the glass of the jar candles, and they put crystals inside it, And my own, because I've seen it happen when you put crystals inside it and that flame gets down close to it and it gets super, super hot. Well, that heat transfers out to the edge of the glass. And I know what happens to glass when you get it hot. It can crack and actually kind of a little ignite, explode type pressure in it.
All right. Yeah.
If you're in my opinion, I tell people don't put your crystals inside the candle to burn. Put your crystals outside around the candle
like a
to burn.
grid, maybe. Yeah.
Exactly. Beautiful. And that's the same thing with having tons of herbs in your candles too. Your tons of herbs that you stack up on top might be fine as your candle's burning down, but those herbs are getting coated in wax, which is a fat, which is a thing that is ignitable. And so you've got basically a fire waiting to happen when you have those herbs. Now what happens is they'll be fine, and then when it gets to the bottom of the jar, all that's left are these herbs that are soaked in grease, and they catch on fire, and you get these big fires, and glass cracks, trays crack, all of those things happen, and it's a big mess. And now you may go, oh my gosh, my spell didn't work, or I'm cursed, or I'm this, or I'm that. This is the material world work that you want to look at first, right? Yeah. Look at your material world stuff and say, oh yeah, I put way too many herbs on that candle, or I put really flammable herbs next to that candle or inside that jar, and that's why it happened. So
right. So you want to know that when you're starting, so you don't have that to use as an excuse because I see that a lot with people in all kinds of readings and divination, that when they don't get the answer they want or the result they want for something, then they'll go, oh, well, I put too many herbs, or, oh, well, it was the wrong kind of wick. You want to set things up properly at the beginning, so then you really know you have if you're going to read that candle, you have a clean read. And even with cards or whatever, for me, I'm like, you really set your intention when you start, so that then you don't go then, oh, well, maybe my choice one was really choice two. I'll hear readers do that, and they'll flip-flop, and I'm like, if you get a reader like that, no. This choice A is this option, and choice B is this option, because I kind of flowchart read, and there's no switching it. Even if you thought it was the other way around, no, you stick to it. You set those intentions at the beginning. That's getting a clean read as far as I'm concerned, right? Okay, so as far as what if you have a let's call it a clean beginning. You've done everything properly, and and you really don't feel there's a material reason that you have a good candle, or you believe you do. And what if it blows up? What if it just pow?
Well, then that's when you want to pay attention to it. So you want to first look for the material reasons. If there's no material reasons for it, then there are these spiritual reasons why these things happen. So a blow-up candle can mean a couple of things. It sort of depends on the spell that you're doing. If you're doing a spell to break something, let's say you have a curse or a jinx on you and you're trying to break that, or you're trying to break someone up or do something like that, then those kinds of breaks can actually be good. It's like dynamite blowing it out of your way, or breaking something up or doing that, right? So I don't always see it as a negative thing. But if you're doing a spell, let's say you're doing a more quote unquote positive spell,
right?
Let's say you're doing a love spell and you had an explosion. I would say that can mean anger. That can mean super hot emotions. That can mean that there's something being thrown at you that you need to work on that first. Because sometimes that can be the situation. Let's say you're doing a love spell and you have it break. It could be someone's trying to block you from having that relationship. And so you might want to have a reading with a trusted reader to look to see if there are any people interfering. So those are the things that I would look to. It depends on the spell that they're doing and sort of the intention, and that would tell me more. But yeah.
So it does depend on what they're doing. Well, do you want to talk any more on that? Let's talk a little bit about your other book. This is When I Met You, and we've talked about this on the show before. Do you want to hold it, Roger?
Okay.
I love this, Madame Pamita's Magical Tarot. And this to me is a must-have. And we've talked about doing the book club, and we just need to get around to doing it. And you said you'd actually pop on one day. I'm going to hold you to it, or an evening. But I believe this book is it was one of the ones that I picked up. Is that one mine? Yeah,
It's-
because it's high. I see
You
the
can tell
highlight.
this is Michelle's because it's all highlighted, every other word.
I see the highlights from here. Yeah, it's you should see this, Madame Pamita. You crack up. There's so many highlights in this book. It's like what's not highlighted. Okay, so
Yeah.
what do you read? One of my highlights.
This is on the Four Swords. Tomb of Medieval Knight. The tomb is has a carving of the knight resting in response, his hands touching in prayer, and just on and on and on.
Yeah, I just highlight, and so
I make her happy. I go to the store, I'll get something, and then I pick her up a little pack of highlighters.
They have
Here you
to
go,
be
got some
yellow.
yellow highlighters.
they have to be yellow highlighters. They can't be any other color. If they're any other color, I'm a highlighter snob.
And they have to be the highlighter brand.
Yeah, and they have to be. Yeah, it's just like, what do you mean you got me a blue highlighter? Like, who's going to use that?
It's true. It's the last one you pick is the blue one. It's terrible.
It's just like I need yellow. What's
You can write
wrong?
notes with it.
So, will you hand me the book? Okay, so I'm going to just do a little open, like a little bibliomancy here. Okay, so I opened up to the Wands family on page, I can't read it, but it's chapter 13. And there's some highlighting on this page.
Shocker.
you know.
Surprise, surprise.
Shocking.
The members of, this is, I'm quoting, the members of the Wands family are the ones who take action, create, and live with intensity and passion. In the astrological realm, they represent the fire signs, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, and those fire sign qualities. The members of this family are the go-getters who live large. They have big hearts and fearless thirst for adventure. Enthusiasm and zest for life are the hallmark of Wands people. With all their energy, they are generally proactive, but can get themselves in a pickle at times if they act with a clear plan, a clear plan in mind. They're not so much talkers or dreamers, but rather spirited doers. I underlined that, and generally attract others and their warmth and generosity. So you introduce the Wands family with that, and then you go into it. And why I like the book so much is that you do say the general meanings and you describe the symbols in a very simple way, and then you give an affirmation and a magic word affirmation for using your magic with these. You have a question to explore, and then you give the wizard's words of wisdom, and then you give a whole your adventure with the like for the Page of Wands or whatever. So you guys. We keep these in stock. We keep all of Madame Pamita's books in stock, our third one being coming out in April, which we've already pre-ordered. And obviously they sell, so we don't have to encourage people to buy them really at all.
Not at all.
So I think that,
What else you got coming?
yeah.
Well, I got some kind of exciting stuff happening. There's a bunch of things. One is I have the new moon spells that I do every month with people. We now just introduced doing full moon spells. So if people want to do magic and they want to have a workshop, but also get a kit where they do the thing with me online, we're doing it now twice a month on the full moon and the new moon. New moons, we always do candle magic. Full moon, we do other kinds of magic. And they can find out about those by going to my site and actually going to New Moon Spell or Full Moon Spell will take them to those two different offerings. In terms of books that I'm doing, I'm working on a tarot little white book for a friend's deck, which is going to be amazing. She's an amazing artist, super popular, super famous artist. She decided to do a deck. And so I'm doing the little white book for that. And then I'm already thinking about my next book. So that's what's going on.
That's so not busy at all. And you're going to be in, Vogue. So before we get off, let's talk about these pictures. If you guys haven't seen them, you do have to go on to, what's the name of your Instagram page?
Madame Pamita. I also have Parlor of Wonders, which is my shop, but Madame Pamita is my main one that I work on. The Parlor of Wonders one is new.
Well, you want to go to Parlor of Wonders because you're going to want to buy stuff too there. So,
yeah.
But tell us a little bit, really quickly, about the photos because they're
Michelle,
they're amazing.
When you got to come out to LA, we'll set up a photo shoot for you. So I have this friend, she was a friend of a friend, now she's my friend. She's a photographer for rock bands. So when you get a photo shoot with her, she has amazing equipment, but she's so talented. Everything looks like a beautiful high-end fashion photo, rock star photo. I mean, she makes you look absolutely gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. So I had done a photo shoot with her before, and when this book came out, I said, oh, I've got to do some where I'm wearing my Slavic clothes, and I've got some Slavic vibe to it. So we did a whole day together, and we did it in a studio, and then we went out to a park nearby, and we shot these photos where I just brought a bunch of props, and I brought a bunch of costumes, and I just went out there and we did it. Now we're going to do a winter one. We're going to go up into the mountains, into the snow, and do a winter one. I'm going to bring some friends along, and we're going to be winter witches and do it up there. But her name is Chris Struther, and she's a phenomenal photographer. She is amazing.
They're
Michelle,
beautiful.
come out here and we will do a photo shoot.
I would love to.
I can set you up with a photo shoot with her, or we can do one together.
Okay. Well, is there a way you can hold that up and we can show that, Matt? Can we zoom in on that picture just to show it?
That's her chicken in the picture. That's a real live chicken.
Nice.
Who was so tame and so cute. And she was in the picture, a little hen. Yeah.
I was gonna say, can you wear the headdress to Tide this summer, or
Sure, I'll bring that.
Please?
I have to bring an extra suitcase for it. But I'll
You're
bring
right.
No, I made that. You know what that is like? So in Ukraine they do flower headdresses, and some of them are really big and elaborate. And I wanted one, but I'm like, I am not going to pay $300 for one. I'm going to make one of myself. So you know what I did? I was like, how do I make it so it stands up like that? How do you think I did that?
He'll know.
Can you guess? No guesses?
I mean, probably built it out of a wire cage, kind of. Did you? No.
I took a big visor that had no back on it, and I put it up here instead of over here.
Yep.
So I have a big visor, and I glued flowers from Michael's on it. It probably cost me, realistically, I've bought way too many flowers. I probably spent $100 on flowers, but it wasn't $300. All right, and I got to make it myself.
Oh no, it's fabulous. It really is. I mean, I saw those pictures and I was like, whoa. I mean, those are just amazing. So I'm glad that
that's cool.
We showed it and thought of showing it. So let's mention Tide and Newts too. Right? We're doing both, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm getting that a verbal, that for sure commitment. But we're having. You want to talk about it?
They're doing disco parties on Saturday nights. Both of them.
Jim and Madame Pamita are doing a disco. Is it Studio 54 or Studio 78?
Studio 78.
Yeah, it's Greg messed that up. That was my idea.
Yeah.
So this all came about, really was my idea and my dream, because I got to tell you a little funny story about it.
Yeah.
Because when I would go to PantheaCon, which was the West Coast, witchy convention, I would go there and they'd be like, big dance party on Saturday night. I'd be like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so fun. I'll put on my sparkly outfit. We'll go disco dance. It'll be so fun. And then I get there and it's like, la, 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 la.
High school prom. Nobody's dancing. Everybody's standing on the side.
Singer with the drumming circle. It was like not what I was wanting.
No.
So I did that several times, and I always was crestfallen, but I'd always get my hopes up. Well, the first time I really got my hopes up, and the second time I didn't get my hopes up quite so high, and then the third time I'm like, really? Okay, I know what it's going to be. But let me check it out anyways, which is fine, but it wasn't what I was hoping and picturing. So
yeah,
I always had this thing. I wanted to make a disco party and take the songs and connect them to the tarot cards and project the tarot cards. And instead of being Studio 54, it would be Studio 78. So I said, okay, let's do it. So my friend Chelsea, my friend Romy, Jim, we all got together. We did it at PantheaCon, and it was a blast. And it was like the big last thing before COVID hit, right? And we were all in lockdown. So we have this beautiful memory of that. So I'm so glad we're going to be able to do it again.
I think it'll be the big new thing. And, when we'll get to celebrate together, and it'll be a lot of fun. And we'll fix that graphic. I think he just misunderstood.
No, it says inspired by Studio 54.
Yeah, but that's confusing. It needs to say studio. Yeah, we'll talk about it later.
It says Studio 78 on it. And
Okay.
I thought it was good because it gets people to know what Studio 78
Okay.
means.
Yeah.
All right.
They may not get it, but when they say Studio 54 and then they get Studio 78, and if they know about tarot, you don't have to be a tarot nerd to enjoy it, by the way.
Well, I mean, you're going to dance, so you're
You're
just
going to dance and have fun. Exactly.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so we have Tide coming up, and what else do we have coming up?
We have Newts.
But what do we have
October.
coming up in the next?
Oh,
So this Friday, I have Tarot Takeaways on Instagram, and that's Amy Mauser will be on, and we're talking about the Judgment card, and then
you
anything
have
else.
StarCon.
And
that you will be
I will
going
be
to.
at StarCon. We're going to Florida, Madame Pamita. We are going, and I'll be
And then-
speaking at that. And do we have anything here?
I've got, this Sunday we have Soultopia Sensation.
Okay, so you guys need to register if you would at tell them where, Roger.
And you can actually go to soultopiapsychicfair.com and you can register for any readings, healings
for
at any
your
of the locations.
yeah, with your favorite reader. So you make sure you get the reader that you want. And then when's your spell?
I have a spell class on the 29th. Is that immediately after we get back from Florida? I have a spell class.
Okay, so that and we don't have time for readings tonight because we enjoyed everything we were talking about. Make sure that you go to our website and I have in June a book coming out, and that is actually available for pre-order now too. It's called Spirits Unveiled, and again, also I wrote that during COVID, and I look forward to
COVID.
reading it because I really have no idea what I wrote because I had COVID while I wrote.
She got her draft back, said, they changed it. This is not what I wrote. And then she went back and pulled it and said, oh, wait, this is what I wrote.
I've done that before too. But I'm going to say, can I just say a little plug for your book? I got a sneak peek at that book. This book, I'm so excited about coming out because people really have this desire to connect to their spirit guides or to connect to their spirits. And this book is so great in showing them how, showing them what to expect, all of those things, and giving them those gorgeous techniques to do. I just loved it so much, Michelle.
Thank you for saying that. I will tell you one little, if I may, Matt, one little story. A friend of mine, I won't say who or what, a loved one has Alzheimer's, and she was saying, she don't really know how to communicate with her. I'm not, missing her spouse, her husband, and she was like, you'll get to see him when you move on. She's like, I'm not so sure that I will. And I said, there's a little part in my book, and it's what you do typically before they pass. It'd be like Roger and I would say, okay, and there's questions like, what song might we listen for that you'd be communicating? Where might we meet? What would be a symbol? You work on it before, like now, so that you're prepared to know, okay, and what's your catchphrase? If I hear that catchphrase over and over again.
Animal.
So
Animal.
I had
You forget the animal. Guess what my
do an
animal was? Guess what my animal is, Matt?
A
Sasquatch.
skunk.
Yeah, there you go.
Sasquatch. And I'm like, how am I ever going to communicate with you? I'll just have to play that thing all the time. But
Now you'll be
anyway,
the one to find one. Then.
Yeah,
See, that's right.
exactly. I'll be the one. And so I had her do that exercise with her mother, to say, what was your, and her dad's, what was y'all's song? And she became very lucid, and it was like the happiest she'd been. So some of the things, exercises in the book, people are already using. I was like, hey, this isn't published yet, so don't give this to anybody, but, here's this one little sheet you can use. And so thank you for saying that, because I think it's really going to help some people in a lot of ways, too. And it does, I'm a little bit of a rebel, so it does take things in a different direction with the way we look at spirits, too. So thank you. And I feel the same about... I feel the same.
It's such a good book, Michelle. It
Thank
really
you.
is. And I'm excited to have it in my shop. I'm super excited for it. When does yours come out? That's what I want to know.
June. That one is June, and so it was in the last catalog, and it was kind of interesting because for a long time on Amazon it said forward by somebody really famous. It literally said that on Amazon. And I had to call them and say, did y'all know that it says forward by someone really famous? And they were like, are you kidding me? And I'm like, no, it's got a placeholder that literally says forward by one really famous on here. And they and because I wasn't totally on the ball with all of that. And so that kind of now it doesn't have the forward by anybody right now, even though Ethany wrote a forward. But it was, because I was thinking, is Ethany, it's not really about tarot or anything like that. So it kind of was going back and forth on stuff. And of course, I love Ethany, but it was just funny because they literally left it up on Amazon saying tarot, like forward by this book and forward by someone really famous. And I asked some of my friends who pre-ordered, I said, did you happen to notice? And before I could even finish the sentence, they were like, yeah, I saw it. I know it's, they go, I saw that it said forward by someone really famous.
Ethany's very famous. I buy it. I think that's good.
It's a catch. I'm going to buy this book to see who that really famous person is inside of there. So Ethany is. So, there you go. But anyway, thanks you guys. And thanks, Matt, as always, for being our producer. We really enjoy having you here and keeping us professional and actually keeping us on time. Because we're 10 minutes over.
Really
You did a great job
great
of that
job
tonight. But it's Madame Pamita, so what else, what can we do? We love her. So we will talk to you guys and everyone here soon and come in and see us on Sunday if you live in town. Otherwise, shop online because we have a lot of great things online, and so does Madame Pamita at the Parlor of Wonders, and we do at mysoultopia.com. And we will talk to everyone soon. Talk to you later.
Good night, guys.
Thanks for listening to SoulWhat, a Soultopia production. If you're intrigued, searching, or looking to schedule a reading of your very own, visit us in sunny Dallas, Texas, or visit us online at facebook.com/Soultopia Holistic Boutique. And if you like what you heard, subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcasting platform to be the first to hear new episodes every Tuesday at 7:30 Central.